In this short video, we will be recreating this animation from Iman Gadzhi. I will go through everything from using AI and generative fill for the image to animating everything using After Effects. All the assets will be given to you below, so make sure to download it and continue following along. First, let's watch the scene to see exactly what's happening. Right away, we can see a simple goal outline animation with a mouse cursor slowly moving into position. The camera moves to the right and we have this AI generated image of a man on his desk viewing directly from the back. A simple email notification animates up from behind the monitors and obviously the shoe sale template. However, if we look closely, there are a few things that you might have noticed, such as the constant movement during the whole clip. All of this is actually much easier than you think, so let's get started. You can use Midjourney if you have it, but honestly, I found Leonardo AI to be much better, especially for this specific animation. So on the screen, this is the prompt that I used. However, you need to make sure that this is turned off and the preset style should be on cinematic. When looking for a picture, try picking one that is modern, clean and simple without too much clutter. This way we can easily edit and mask each layer in Photoshop. After you have chosen one that you like, you place it into the latest Photoshop version. The reason for this is so we can use the AI generated fill to expand the image from the left side, as well as mask the layers separately. This is very important because this will allow us to animate the character just like Iman Gadzhi. Now, I had my designer help me out with this part, so here's the recorded footage provided by him. I will credit him in the description below. I will simply talk over what he's exactly doing so you can understand. Once you have your image in Photoshop, use your quick selection tool to select the guy sitting down on the chair, then press Ctrl+J on your keyboard to create a new layer just for him. Now hide the layer, select the original photo, grab your lasso tool and go over the man once again. Then click on Generative Fill. This might look terrible or look great, try seeing the other variations. In our case, it wasn't really that good, so here's how you can fix that. First, delete the new layer that was just created. While holding Ctrl, click the top layer and go to Select, Modify and Expand. Now click Generate once again. As you can see, we get a much clearer look. Now hold both layers and press Ctrl+E to merge them together. The next step will take a little bit of time and adjusting. You will grab your selection tool and try your best to select the desk and everything on it without the background. You can watch how he does it here to understand. Once you have a rough selection, click Select and Mask so you can fix the parts that you've missed. Try to be as precise as possible, but as long as it looks good enough, you can move on. So once you're happy, Ctrl+J on your keyboard to separate it, then do what we did before. Hold Ctrl and click the new layer, go back and select the original image. Now go to Select, Modify, Expand, click Generate. Choose the best variation, then merge both layers together, and rename it to BG. And just like that, we now have the same image separated into 3 layers. Now let's expand the image. To do this, it's very simple. You just use the crop tool, extend, and then click Generate. This will either look great or absolutely terrible. In this case, we had a nice simple image, so it worked out pretty nicely. And do not forget to merge the layers together. Finally, save a new copy of the file and name it to whatever you like. Do not export this as a PNG. We will export the entire PSD file into After Effects. Alright, so you've done that. The first thing we want to do is create a new composition and make it exactly 14.15 seconds long. Then import the file and make sure you select Retain Composition Sizes. Then go into the pre-composed layer and copy over the files. Now as you can see, we can control each one and move all at the same time. We have completed the boring part and we now have this extended AI image. Grab the Iman Gadzhi voiceover that I cut up for you and place it in. This way we can sync the movements with his words. Turn everything into 3D. We will create a temporary camera just to move around, but this is not how we will make the movements that you saw in Iman's video. Now, I forgot to do this, but you must use the camera. Don't zoom in using the Photoshop layers like I did right here. I realized this was a mistake and I fixed it later in the video. You can skip to this time frame and you'll see what I mean. I actually end up realizing the mistake, adjusting the positioning and the sizes, and adding the camera. You don't want to go through all that pain, so just create it now, zoom in with it, and make sure everything is 3D. And like I said, this is just a temporary camera, we will end up deleting this later. So I will simply zoom in to match Iman's video and then start creating this buy button animation with the cursor. Now create the shape using the rounded rectangular tool and make it 3D. Every single time you import something or create a new layer, instantly make it 3D unless I say otherwise. I used a stroke of 5 with a light blue color and I adjusted how round the edges are. I then duplicated the shape layer, added deep glow, and you can just copy my settings. Feel free to pause the video if you ever need to. Open up the layer, click add, and trim path. Keyframe end to 0%, move a little bit further and set it back to 100. Select your keyframes and press F9 to easy ease. Feel free to bring these closer or further if it's animating too fast or too slowly. Now import the shopping cart icon. Place the effect, change the color, and set it to white. I also added a glow. Adjust the positioning and finish off by writing the word buy and doing the same thing. I used Monster Art Medium for the font and also added a deep glow instead of the regular glow. I will leave that plugin in the description below. You may have also noticed that the background is darker and then it becomes lighter as the camera shifts to the right. To do this, simply create a black solid and keyframe opacity. Next, place the mouse cursor and copy these effects. Then just animate the position so it goes from bottom right to the middle of the rectangle. Distance the keyframes and ease them so it takes longer to complete. Go to the graph editor and copy this graph so it's even smoother. Now I want you to move back to the middle using the camera. However, you might run into a problem here. If you see that the text or cursor is moving at a different pace and is not staying in place, then that means we have a problem within the 3D space. Here's how you can fix this. Click this drop-down menu here and select two views. You might be confused at first, but it's really simple. The reason they are moving at different speeds is because some layers are closer to the camera than the others. Right over here, you can change the angle view. This will make it easier to see what's happening. What you see right here is the problem. Simply select each one and move it back and align it to the best of your ability. Once you have something similar to me, you might notice that the size and positioning are still messed up. For this, only change the scale properties, then use the custom view we have on the left side to adjust the positioning. I'm very happy with how this looks, so I will go back to one view, and now when I move the camera, you'll notice that the layers actually stay together and move together. So now we can move back to the middle. We will now create this rectangular email notification. Remember to make everything 3D to save you the pain. I'll start by importing the Gmail logo. Create a white rounded rectangle tool and place it behind the logo. Once you're happy with how it looks, pre-compose and rename it to Gmail logo. Now you might run into an issue. If you don't see your pre-composed layer, don't worry, you can fix this by making it 3D and rasterizing it by clicking this button right here. Now use the rounded rectangular tool to make the outer shape. When you're happy with the size, choose linear gradient. Make one white and one an orange/yellowish color, and use this bar that appears in the middle to adjust the gradient. Mess around with this. I just brought it up and down to get this nice bright gradient. Duplicate the shape, apply Gaussian blur to the first one, and deep glow to the second. Here are my settings if you're wondering. You do not have to copy me, you can do what you like with this. Once again, adjust the size and the positioning, place the Gmail logo to the left side. After that, I just added the text, which I don't really need to show you since you know how to do that. I just use Montserrat Bold and Montserrat Regular for the font. Once you've completed the adjustments and are happy with how everything looks, you can just pre-compose everything together. Once again, make it 3D and rasterize it to fix the problem. Now hide the layer and let's focus on creating the final animation, the shoe sale template. Once again, to save you from so much pain and headache, do not forget to make everything 3D when you import it. First, place in the product picture and use the rectangular tool to smoothen the edges. Using the same tool, change the color to a gray and make the new shape much larger. You can eyeball this, it doesn't have to be perfect. Turn it into an adjustment layer by pressing here and apply fast box blur. Change the value to 50 and keep the other one at 3. Now reduce the opacity of the layers just slightly. I put mine around 96%, and as you can see, we have this glossy type look, which also affects everything behind it. I decided to add hue and saturation to give it a more grayish look, just like Iman, so I reduced the saturation to -50 and lightness to -5. For the last effect, right-click, go to Layer Styles, and add Outer Glow. Copy these exact settings right here. This will give you that blur around the edges. This is the before and after. You can clearly see a difference. Now, I'm assuming you understand how to do everything else. It's just shape layers and text layers. After creating them, you should have something like this. Now, when it comes to creating these small boxes with the numbers, you need to do something different here. When you create the shape layer, make the stroke outline 1 with the color white, reduce the opacity to something like 80 to 90%. And do not make it 3D. First, duplicate the shape 6 times and move each one to the right. Try to separate them equally, but do not worry because we will fix this very easily. When you have done that, select all of them, go to the Align tab, and press these 2 buttons right here to ensure that the spacing between each square is equal. Now, while still selecting all, turn it into a 3D layer and move them together to the right position. Finish it off by placing the number in the center of each square. This may take some time adjusting. For the final square, make sure the fill is turned on with white as the color, remove the stroke, and change the color of number 14 to black. Finally, I just copied the same stuff that we had already done for the buy button. I moved it over, pre-composed everything, adjusted the size and the positioning. The only thing I changed was the outline color to white. For the cursor, I recommend waiting before animating it. You'll know why later in this video. I need you to listen carefully to these next steps. Select the pre-composed buy button, along with everything else that makes up this entire shoe template. Pre-compose and rename to shoe sale. When you do this, you might have to readjust the positioning of the buy button and fix the 3D scene. So go back into the composition, custom view 2, and bring it back. When you do this, it will get much smaller, so increase the scale. I'm happy with this, so let's move on. When I rewatched the animation, I realized that the text fades in from left to right as the entire template slides up. In the description, I've linked an After Effects plugin that you must have. It's completely free and will allow you to make animations like these with the click of a button. Go through the tutorial and download it. It's called Animation Composer 3. Once you have it, you can continue following this tutorial. Press on Window and click Animation Composer 3. While selecting both the product name and the cost, so in this case our text layer, Man Street Runner and $98, go to Transitions text layer, fade characters together from start, and double click to apply. As you can see, we now have this smooth animation. Next, I want you to go back to the first buy button that we created and pre-compose everything excluding the cursor, and make sure it's above the layer so it's actually over the elements. I also recommend creating an adjustment layer and placing CC Vignette to darken everything just a little bit. Also, open up the scale for the black solid we created, unlink it, and increase the length to cover the entire image. You may have noticed as well that in the animation, as the shoe pops up, everything else darkens. To do that, we would simply create a new black solid, place it above everything except the shoe template, and keyframe the opacity once again. But first, let's create all the motion of the scene step by step. Let's start with the email notification. Make sure it's behind the desk and the man and adjust the size. At 620 is where you want to start animating the email notification. So create a position keyframe, go to 8 seconds and bring it back up. Select the keyframes, press F9 and copy my graph. We want to start slightly fast and slow down at the end. Now go to 930, create a new keyframe, go to 1030, and bring it back down. Copy this graph so it starts slow and speeds up at the end. Feel free to mess around with the distance to adjust how smooth or quick you want the animation. Now at the same time it begins going down, create a position keyframe for the shoe sale and position it in the center. Go to 11 seconds and create another one. Now go back and just bring it down. Easy ease and copy this graph. Sharp and long, which will give us a very smooth animation. So as this one begins to go down, this rapidly comes up and starts slowing down. Next, let's deal with this cursor that I just have here. I'm actually going to go inside the shoe sale composition and copy the cursor onto my main comp and delete it from the other composition. I'm also going to bring it closer like we always did in the 3D scene. Now, I'm simply going to keyframe the position and opacity values so it smoothly appears on the screen. Another adjustment that you need to make is the text animation. Go to where the shoe is starting to become visible. Go into the composition and move the text so the animation starts as the template slides up. If you have been following along, you should have completed most of the animation. However, there's still something we need to cover, which is the moving desk and the character head. So I want you to hide everything that we've created. Select the man and the desk and keyframe position at the beginning. Go to where the email notification is just about to be revealed and create new keyframes. Now go back to the beginning and move both of the layers slightly to the left. Select both keyframes and press F9. Now let's move his head left and right. Select the man, select the puppet tool up top, and create points just like mine. As you can see, we can move his head without affecting the other parts of his body. So what I want you to do is every 2 seconds, tilt his head slightly. Once you've done this, ease the movement. If you remember in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there was always constant movement in his clip. So here's what you'll do. Hide the camera, reveal everything else. Take all except the adjustment layer and pre-compose it. Name it entire animation or sequence. Click the 3D icon and rasterize the composition. Next, create position and scale keyframes. You can just copy what I'm doing, but basically we start zoomed in and slowly zoom out and all the way to the middle where the guy's sitting at the desk. Once you're happy with the adjustment, copy this graph. Then, place a transform, go to 3 seconds and make new keyframes. Go all the way to the end, zoom in slightly and move upwards. You'll now see that there's constant motion. The screen actually never stops moving. This movement starts before this one even ends. We are almost done, but there's one more thing we have to do. Go back into the composition and create another black solid. Place it above everything, but under the shoe shell template. Keyframe opacity to darken everything as the shoe slides up. Unlink the scale property and make sure it covers the entire expanded image. And there you have it, a very simple AI generated scene. The project file is below if you want to get it. I provide free assets in my Discord, so make sure to join the community. If this helped you, please subscribe.